now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to order. I'm Tyler Riley, cop and a half.
I'm Melissa Meli, the spy.
I'm Tristan Miller, the saucy sleuth.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/ADCpod and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/ADCpod.
All right, so today we're talking about season 3, episode 3? Is that right?
Episode 5.
Yeah.
Episode 5? Okay, well, fine. Of Agatha Christie's Poirot series, The Wasps Nest.
Yeah,
Ooh.
wasps, plural. And so that means that the apostrophe, so wasps is plural, and also possessive is because it's their nest. So the apostrophe comes after the S.
That's
and
true.
only there. That's a little grammar lesson for everybody.
Because it's not Wasps' Nest.
I don't know. I thought I'd just start adding.
Solemn.
I thought I'd just start adding grammar tips into our podcast. That'd be good, right? A grammar podcast.
Did you know there's actually a very fun series, not based off of grammar, we're talking about language in general, from Stephen Fry. I think it's still available on Audible, called Fry's English Delights. It's very fun. That's all.
Oh, for some reason that made me hungry.
Oh, well, yeah. Like Turkish Delight.
And like fry, like French fries. Oh God, I want French fries.
It's not
By the way, we're
2
all
minutes in, and we're already talking about food.
Good.
What do you expect?
Yeah, that's pretty on brand. We are recording this from quarantine. Hello, happy quarantine, everyone. How are you doing? Are you okay? I don't think anyone's okay. But this is why we're bringing you some content to hopefully make you and us more okay.
You got to do something. It also means we're recording remotely, so if there's any strangeness audio-wise, hopefully I fix it in post. But just letting you know, letting you all know that's the situation.
Bear with us. I am literally under a blanket right now.
God bless. Omitted. So this episode starts. By the way, it's based off of another Poirot Investigates, which is fun. Which is, I think, generally speaking, the quality of the episodes that are based off of the short stories is higher. But that's me. So you can read this episode too if you want. So basically, it starts because much like everyone right now, Poirot is going stir crazy because he hasn't had any cases for a little bit.
Yeah. And he's hanging out with Japp and Hastings.
At some sort of fair.
Is that now?
That's the next note I have.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, they're at a house.
Yeah. And Japp's tummy is not doing good.
Yeah.
At all.
No.
Yeah. It's in an immense amount of pains.
At the train station waiting for his wife, right? Japp's wife?
Oh,
yes,
right.
That's right.
An introduction to a character we have never met before and will not meet in this episode.
Yeah. Right. Who knew he was married? I sure didn't.
All that build up for what?
It's like Chekhov's gun, sort of, somehow, right?
Yeah, but we just never meet her in the episode, which is very...
Yeah.
So it's an anti-Chekhov's gun.
Yep, that's right.
Chekhov's sword? That's the opposite of a gun, right?
Yes, that is...
words.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Words are the opposite of a gun, yeah. So they're at the train station waiting for his wife. And Poirot hasn't had any cases, and he's going nuts. And then they go to the apartment, right?
They run. Do they? Is that what they do next? I don't remember exactly how, but I know that Hastings sees is it just he sees her driving by, he sees this woman, and he's like, oh, I think I've seen her on the cover of a magazine. And then they cut to her driving in her car and looking down next to her at a magazine, a copy of Vogue, upon which she is the cover person image. So yeah, that was fun.
Hastings throughout this entire thing is too horned. He's too horny.
He is what? Too horned?
Yeah, too horny. He's like about this woman, constantly commenting about how nice looking she is.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty tame for Hastings, yeah.
It is consistent, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then isn't the next thing they go to the fair? Or whatever.
Well, no, we meet her and her fiance. Okay. Her fiance is John Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, look, this is me on the cover of a magazine. And he's like, that looks great. Good job, honey.
I'm so lucky. Yeah.
And then they go to a fair.
And
right?
then they go to the fair.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And they all happen to be there. And a friend of John Harrison's and Molly Dean, who is the model, shows up, and he's dressed as a clown because apparently he's like working an odd job for this fair, and it's played by Peter Capaldi.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, let's talk about this for a second, because I thought for a moment that actually for solid 5 minutes that it was Hugh Laurie.
Oh, sure.
And so I looked it up, and I looked up Hugh Laurie Poirot, and apparently as of December of last year, there is some talk of Hugh Laurie playing Poirot at some point.
Interesting.
So that's what I turned up, but then I went further into IMDb and found that, yes, indeed, it is Peter Capaldi.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun, too.
For those who don't know who that is, where would we know him from?
Oh,
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who.
Most recently.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he is doing a very serviceable English accent. He is originally from Glasgow, Scotland. There's a moment later on where he says the word murder and he completely can't do it in a Scottish accent. It's very funny.
In an English accent? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, he like can't not do it in his...
Right.
Yeah, he's like murder, and that's the only time he slips up. It's just like, okay.
So a fun bit of Doctor Who trivia is that they would not let David Tennant use his Scottish accent to play the Doctor. But then Capaldi came on and they let him use his Scottish accent.
What I understand is they didn't let him. They were required by him to use it.
There you go.
Also, fun fact, he's an Oscar-nominated writer. For a short film.
That's fun.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's there as a clown.
And we learned that he is the ex-fiance as of like a year ago at the most of Molly Dean, the model.
Yeah. And then they bump into Poirot, and it turns out John Harrison is old friends with Poirot. Like literally the oldest friend he had since coming to England, which is very sweet. They have a very tender moment.
And Poirot is reading tea leaves.
Very fun. Did not like it. Way to go.
Yeah, and Hastings has become not enamored with, but you know, he's picked up the habit of photography. So he's taken lots of pictures.
Classic bit from Hastings.
Oh yeah, Poirot says to Japp something like, I give it 3 weeks at the most.
Yeah, I like how he's such a very typical man of like, obsessed with gadgets and cars and women and like not paying attention.
Yes, that is what men do.
And listen.
Hashtag not all men.
Oh.
Listen, as a man, I can speak to this only from my personal experience.
Hey, and also, we know it's not all men. That's not the point.
But yeah, so they all hang out, and Poirot does some tea readings, and I don't remember what.
Well, yeah, but he also, so Molly Dean sits down and says, "Oh, will you read my tea leaves?" And he's like, "But of course." And he reads her tea leaves, and he's like, "Oh no, this is awkward. Seems like things aren't going to go super well for you and your fiance. I see violence and darkness," or something very ominous, is what he reads.
Yes.
And when does Inspector Japp, is he there? Is he?
Yeah, he's hanging with them.
Yeah, his stomach's still terrible. Absolutely awful.
Because I believe the next thing we see, as Poirot is reading about the horribleness of what's going to befall this woman, the clown does some trick that makes an explosion noise, and Japp is like, "Oh, somebody call the doctor."
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And it seems related. But yeah, so he goes to the hospital.
Yeah. He gets rushed off to the hospital.
Yes.
And then,
do we go back to the office where Hastings converts
bathroom into a dark room?
Into a dark room.
By the way, $5 says the person that made up the term dark room was of some sort of German ancestry. It's a very practical. It's like, what do you do? What's that room? Well, it's dark in there.
Oh,
End
sure.
of thought. End of sentence.
Yeah. Utilitarian.
Yeah, very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
It's the dark room in there, and that's where you make the pictures. But yeah,
exactly.
Precisely. But he's converting that. The thing is a mess. Miss Lemon has class pass or something. She's going to an exercise class, and she thinks that she suggests that Poirot also take a class, and he says there is nothing wrong with the body of Poirot. It is in perfect condition, which did make me laugh. We get some really good lines from Poirot.
Yeah, it's really fun.
This episode.
Oh yeah, also when Hastings is converting the bathroom into a dark room, he says, "You don't need to get in here for like a couple of hours, right?" And Poirot's like, "Oh no, let me consult my calendar."
Yeah. I don't know whether or not I'm going to have to take a piss. Come on.
So yeah. In the meantime, what's going on?
We cut back to the couple, right, at the at their house, and Molly is going on a trip. She's leaving for a trip, and he's like, "Don't drive too fast now," and because you do that, and she's like, "I won't." And then we cut to her driving way too fast, and then she gets into a car accident, and says she has to stay where she was going for the next 2 days. It was like some modeling gig or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was something also wrong with her brakes or something? Something fishy is...
Yeah, she was like, the brakes didn't work, is what she said.
So Poirot kind of gets pulled into this, and I'm kind of losing the thread of how he does get pulled into it.
Makes himself involved.
Yeah, he inserts himself because
maybe that's bored.
Why he's bored, and he met an old friend, and he just wants to hang out. They get invited to a fashion show as well, which was quite fun. We did forget one thing at the beginning of the episode. There's this creepy old man.
Oh,
with
yeah.
a skull cane watching Molly do something.
Yes, exactly.
It's only important in a little bit. And then they go to the fashion show, and Molly is doing a walk in the fashion show, and then the old man shows up again, and Poirot is very suspicious, and then he runs out with Molly, but before they go into his car, Hastings manages to take a photo of him, which is very helpful. Then they get in the car, and Molly's crying, and then they drive off, and Poirot is like, what is going on?
Yeah. So he's going around investigating, and when he's talking to Claude, the ex-fiance, at one point, he says, what are you even doing? There's been no crime. And he's like, well, yes, but I am trying to prevent a crime that hasn't been committed yet. And isn't that the best case scenario, or something like that? I've totally butchered it, but it was a very clever little witty piece of writing there, where it's, the fortune telling kind of theme going through, where he's predicting that a crime will occur and trying to nip it in the bud.
Yeah. And at some point, Claude attempts to get rid of these wasps that are on the estate, because he's working as like a handyman for John Harrison and Molly to a certain extent. And they don't go away. And over the course of them not going away, Poirot gets stung by a wasp. And then they go to the local pharmacists, the local doctors, to do some snooping. And Tyler, what happens there? Do you remember?
They have to somehow get into her records. So Poirot has Hastings try and distract her, as only Hastings can, apparently. So he just asked her like very benign questions, like, have you run this shop by yourself? She's like, yeah, I mean, since my husband died. Thanks for bringing that up. And then
yeah, and he's super awkward. He is super really awkward about it, and he can't think of stuff. He's so bad at lying.
He ends up just like staring at her until she's like, do you need anything else? And he's like, oh no, sorry, we're leaving.
Yeah.
And
so she gives him
somehow not knowing, like, Poirot ends up being finished with what he's doing. We have no idea if he actually completes the task or not, because like the camera only focuses in on the pharmacist and Hastings.
Yeah, it is. It's real bizarre.
Sorry, and then this is where they go to the fashion show.
Right.
But I want to make a comment. Like, during a lot of these scenes, the camera is moving a lot. It's the way this is shot is really, really nice throughout. There's a lot of almost like 360 spins and stuff. It's very interesting. But then they go to the fashion show, and the thing that we said there happens. And then they go visit Jap in the hospital.
But wait, at the fashion show, there is a woman wearing a very distinctive pink dress. And it's current fashion, so it has only come out within the past couple of months. This is important.
Okay, I do not remember how.
Oh, okay.
But that's fine. But they go visit him at the doctor's, and Poirot is very distressed and grossed out by the whole. He had a surgery, so he's very like, ugh, that sounds nasty, and quickly leaves. But he drops off some chocolates for Jap, which is nice.
Yeah, I assume he had his appendix out.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, he was in some bad pain.
Yeah, and then as he's getting released from the hospital, he bumps into the man from the fashion show.
Right, the creepy man with the skull cane.
Yes. And he calls up Poirot, and Poirot says, thank you for telephoning, which is something I think we should bring back.
Yeah, thank you for telephoning. Yeah. Especially in this day and age.
So then we get to we're in the home stretch now.
Are we now? Okay, it feels like more should have happened.
Listen,
there was, but like it's not terribly important to the mystery at hand.
So yeah, basically we're on the porch of John Harrison, the fiance, right? Is that where we're going now?
Yep. Do you want to do an ad break quick?
Hello everybody, this is Tristan Miller, the Saucy Sleuth. I want to thank you for listening. Just a reminder, you can go to audibletrial.com/adcpod and get your free audiobook today. We're also a member of the Scavengers Network. You can go to scavengersnetwork.com and check out all of the great programming they have. They've been doing a lot of live streams lately during the quarantine. I'm going to be doing some live streams of Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, which is the first video game I ever owned, and I'm very excited to do that with you all. You can also go to our Patreon, patreon.com/adcpod, to receive early access to episodes, as well as bonus episodes. We started reviewing Murder, She Wrote, and that will be exclusively available at the $1 level over at our Patreon. I think that's about it, other than stay home, wash your hands, stay safe. And let's get back to the episode.
So we're on the porch then.
Yes. And John Harrison has a cup of tea that he's drinking, right? And Poirot comes over and is like, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?"
Before we get to this part, there is something, because Poirot visits before and then comes back later to watch the wasps get destroyed. And he says, "I feel sorry for the wasps because they have no Hercule Poirot to warn them." It's very funny.
That is funny.
He gets some very good lines in this one. He's very funny. But then he comes back to presumably watch the wasps get destroyed. And then this is where we see John Harrison on his veranda sipping tea.
Yeah. And Poirot starts going in on what's going on, and he has put together some things about Molly's relationship with her ex-fiancé, Peter Capaldi, or Claude, as he is called in this one. And on the visit to his place, where he was like painting something on a ladder, Poirot had noticed that there was a portrait of Molly that said, "Love you forever, XOXOXO."
Gossip Girl.
And it was still up there, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I am still in love with her, what of it?" And this dress that she was wearing in that was the same pink dress that was on the fashion model at the very recent show. So it couldn't have been from even a year ago when they were engaged. It had to have been more recent than that. And then he remembers that on the teacup that he had read her tea leaves from at the little fair thing, she had like pink lipstick on, or coral lipstick on, or something. But then there was also red on the cup that she had drunk from. And of course, Claude, dressed as the clown, was wearing red face paint around his lips.
A very disturbing cutaway. They show them making out, which is very strange to see a man in full clown makeup.
Yes, it was real odd.
Absolutely snogging it out.
I feel like we can make out, but you need to take that clown makeup off. Catch me later. Thank you. But yeah, so from all of this, he's put together that that not Claude, but John Harrison knew about the affair and was going to kill himself with a slow-acting poison and blame it on Claude. And what else am I missing from that?
Well, from that, because what's his nuts is dying. So that's why he's just trying to expedite the process so that it looks like Claude so they can never be happy.
Oh, right. Yeah. So he's trying to pin it on Claude. Pin the murder on Claude, because at the pharmacist, what they were doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Poirot found out that they had record of Claude buying this poison. So it looked like
wasps.
Right. Exactly. So it was a frame up so that he would be convicted of it.
And he also looked at the records to find out that John Harrison was, in fact, dying. He has 2 months to live.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer.
Yep.
So, yeah, he was going to frame Claude, who would get hanged, for this. And Poirot was like, "You're not a murderer." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to die soon anyway." And he's like, "Well, no, because I just put some, chalk or something in your tea. I switched it out. So, joke's on you. You're going to live, but not for much longer."
Yeah. We're going to prolong your death. But it'll... Okay.
Yeah, but, that way, he doesn't frame his best friend for murder.
Yes.
It doesn't kill a man, essentially, which is good.
Right, yeah.
And then the wasps are still there, and John Harrison is like, "Well, I don't even mind them now." Poirot walks off into the sunset, tipping his hat after John Harrison says thank you.
Yep. And he has lots of negatives hanging around in his bathroom.
Yeah, he does. So, what do you guys think of this episode?
Tyler, I want to hear what you think.
I give it's out of 5, right?
Yeah.
I give it a 3. It was interesting. We got introduced to some fun characters. We got to see Poirot be a little bit more frazzled and sassy. I mean, I wasn't feeling very emotionally invested. I did like the reveal in this episode. Yeah, it's about love and no, there is no murder. But seeing Poirot's logic and these little bits of information that we get piece by piece throughout the episode that don't really seem like much. We get at one point, and I don't think it was talked about by us because it's not that big. But at the estate, there's a barrel for all the runoff water from the gutters. And Poirot smells petrol in there. And then we find out that Harrison has been emptying out the petrol into this runoff water barrel and just giving Claude essentially water and nothing to work with. And that's why the wasps aren't leaving.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they were a bit surprising, things I didn't think of or things that I didn't think were going to be important. So I didn't pay too much attention to at first. And then when the reveal happened, it was oh, okay. I should have paid more attention to that or thought more into other things.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I really liked this one, even though nobody died. Isn't that unusual for me?
It is unusual for you.
No, I give it a 4. I thought it was really interesting. It might be getting a Peter Capaldi bump. He was great. And it was really enjoyable to watch all of the Poirot, Japp, Hastings banter stuff. They're all... Yeah, Poirot was in his peak form. And it was just... I had a really good time. It was very intriguing.
I give it like a 4 out of 5. And during the wrap up, I did not I had no idea where it was kind of going, which for me is very nice. Poirot has a bunch of good lines. It's everyone at their peak form. It's a very solid episode. It's not like my favorite. And this is a thing in general that I've been kind of coming to grips with, of the pacing of this show is very slow, so it's hard for me to concentrate personally. And that's why I think when we're doing the recap, it's sometimes hard to remember 100% of what happens, for me at least. But this was engaging enough that I was more or less on board everything. But yeah, it was very good. I liked it. 4 out of 5.
Excellent. I think that's about it.
So I now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to a close.
Gavel
Thank you all for listening, and subscribe to that Patreon.
Yes. Gavels.